oviduct is around, there are two oviducts in human beings. They are 10 centimeter in length, extend laterally from the uterus. They are the site of fertilization. They are the site of cleavage reactions, the initial reactions that take place after the zygote is formed. So oviduct is the site of fertilization. I told you the ampullary isthmic region is the site of fertilization. It is also the site of cleavage. That means zygote, after being formed, undergoes initial cleavage reactions inside the oviduct. The oviduct is divided into these parts: the infundibulum, which is the funnel-shaped part, a trumpet-like part on one end of the tube, and has finger-like projections called fimbriae. Finger-like projections called fimbriae. Then you have the wide part, which is the ampulla, which is the widest part. So you do get question from here. So this is the widest part where fertilization takes place. This is the site of fertilization. This is the place where fertilization in human beings takes place. Then you have the isthmus, which is the straight, narrow part, just present, just lateral to the walls of the uterus. And then you have the uterine part, the part which lies in the wall of the uterus. Fundus is a part of the uterus. So the part which enters the uterus after the isthmus and enters the uterus is the uterine part. So the function of the oviduct is to carry ovum to the uterus by peristalsis. And how does this take place? This takes place by the cilia, by the epithelium which is present. So we were talking about the histology of the oviduct. So what did I tell you about the histology of the oviduct? And if you've forgotten the diagram of the female reproductive tract, let me just once again show you the diagram of the female reproductive tract. So we are talking about this. This is a cut section and this is the whole section. So over here you can see this is the fimbriae. Then you have the infundibulum. Then you have this isthmus. And then you have this after the isthmus, ampulla. So you have the fimbriae, you have the infundibulum, you have the ampulla, you have the isthmus, and then what continues inside is the uterine part. So we'll see a simpler diagram so that you can recall where exactly the different parts are. So here is the fimbriae, the infundibulum, the funnel-shaped area, the widest portion called the ampulla, the isthmus, the narrow portion, and then what enters is the uterine part, So these are the different regions of the oviduct. Now, what is there inside the oviduct? What is there inside the oviduct? I told you histology of the oviduct. So oviduct shows three important layers. I told you. So the three important layers are the mucosa layer, which is the innermost. Innermost is mucosa. Then we have a layer of a muscular layer in between, made up of muscles, and we also have the outermost, which is serosa. Also outermost, which is serosa. So the mucosa layer is made up of epithelium. It is made up of E for epithelium and lamina propria. I told you yesterday, made up of lamina propria. And what kind of epithelium is there? The epithelium is what kind? The epithelium is it is ciliated columnar epithelium. So it is ciliated columnar epithelium. Okay. So we're talking about the mucosa layer. The mucosa layer is made up of epithelium. Epithelium is ciliated columnar epithelium. And there are two kinds of cells over here actually. There are two kinds of cells in the mucosa. You have the ciliated cells which bear cilia that act like a conveyor belt by conveying the cilia beat, and the beating of the cilia helps in the movement of the secondary oocyte towards the uterus. Otherwise, it would have been stationary in the fallopian tube. So ciliated columnar epithelium cells, the ciliated cells, they help in moving the secondary oocyte into the fallopian tube. And the non-ciliated part has cells called PEG cells, And what do the PEG cells do? So you have got two kinds of cells, ciliated and peg cells. So the cells which bear cilia and the peg cells, PEG, peg cells. What do the peg cells do? The peg cells provide nutrition. The peg cells provide nutrition to they have microvilli, increase the surface area for absorption and provide nutrition to these cells, to the oocytes. All right. So mucosa is the innermost layer. Mucosa is the innermost layer. It is made up of epithelium and lamina propria, and you have the ciliated columnar epithelium everywhere. You ask this question, what kind of epithelium is there? And there are two kinds of cells, ciliated cells and peg cells. Ciliated cells help in movement of the secondary oocyte, whereas peg cells, they have microvilli and they help in um, you know providing nutrition. What kind of muscles are present in the oviduct? What kind of muscles are present in the oviduct? So has this has both longitudinal as well as circular muscles. So you have longitudinal plus circular muscles, L for longitudinal. So longitudinal as well as circular muscles, and these muscles, they show peristalsis. This peristaltic movement, this rapid contraction and expansion, helps in movement of the ovum, of the secondary oocyte. And finally, you have the serosa, which is the outermost. So the middle is muscular, the outermost is serosa, and the innermost is mucosa. So this is the structure of histology of the oviduct. This is the histology of the oviduct. So with this, we have completed the oviduct. Ciliated epithelium. My voice is not clear. Which layer did you say made sure that implantation takes place in the zona pellucida? I told you that when the secondary oocyte is released from the Graafian follicle, or by the rupturing of the Graafian follicle, I told you when the suppose this is the secondary oocyte which is released. So it has these layers. It has the oolemma, which is the layer. This is the nucleus, and there is a layer of zona pellucida. There is a layer of zona pellucida, and it also has corona radiata. It also has corona radiata cells surrounding it. So in this form, the secondary oocyte is released from the Graafian follicle. Now this is the zona pellucida. This is the oolemma, and this is the bluish is the zona pellucida. So zona pellucida ensures that, see, what happens? Still the zona pellucida is there. No, it is going to ensure that the implantation does not take place in the fallopian tube, and it takes place in the uterus. But sometimes, as I told you, there's a clinical condition where the implantation takes place inside the oviduct only and becomes very dangerous. You have to take out the oviduct has to be operated, and the fallopian tube has to be removed. So this is called tubal pregnancy, and this is like very, very dangerous when the zona pellucida dissolves and the implantation takes place in the wall of the oviduct. Okay, so you got the answer to this. So next is the uterus. Uterus is the next part, and uterus's alternative name is hystera. You know the alternative name of uterus. The alternative name of uterus is hystera. Is the alternative name of the uterus. Hystera is the alternative name, and one more name is the womb. One more name is the womb. Popularly called as womb. This is there, popularly called as womb. So this has multiple roles. What happens is the uterus or the womb serves as a pathway for the sperm deposition in the vagina. So the path which the sperms take, they have to cross the uterus to reach the oviduct. So they have to cross the uterus to reach the oviduct. So uterus serves as the pathway for sperm deposition, and it also is a site of implantation. The fetus stays over here for to complete the gestation period, and it is also the source of menstrual flow. So immense importance of the uterus. It is the womb. is inverted pear shaped, and in a non-pregnant female, obviously it is going to be lighter compared to a pregnant female's uterus will weigh more compared to a non-pregnant female uterus. It is dome shaped, pear shaped. Sorry, it is inverted pear shape. And what are the different parts? What are the different parts of the uterus? So let us just look at the different parts, and then I will show you the diagram. So the first dome-shaped part, the first part, anterior part, the dome-shaped part, like dome-shaped means like this. I'll show you the diagram. So that is the fundus that receives the openings of the fallopian tubes. So the fallopian tubes open into the fundus. Then there is this body or corpus is the next part. Body or corpus is the next part, which is the tapering part, the tapering narrow inferiorly into the cervix. So it tapers the small the part between the fundus and the cervix is the body that just is narrow tapering. And then you have the cervix. Cervix is actually the inferior, the lowermost portion, the neck of the uterus, the lowermost portion. And it also has, it encircles or surrounds the cervical canal. So it surrounds the cervical canal. And if you know that the cervical canal opens into the cervical canal opens into the uterine cavity by an, there are two openings. There is this external OS and internal OS. So by the internal OS, the cervical canal by the internal OS opens into the uterus, and by the external OS, these are like openings. By the external OS, it opens into the vagina. So coming to the parts of the uterus once again, So hystera or the womb is the alternative name. There are three important parts: the dome-shaped fundus, the narrow body, and the neck region cervix. Cervix also encircles the cervical canal. The cervical canal opens into the uterine cavity by an internal OS, and into the vagina by the external OS. All right. And so over here you have the wall of the uterus. The wall of the uterus is made up of these layers: the perimetrium or the serosa, myometrium, the thickest of all, made up of smooth muscle fibers. I will tell you, what is the blood supply to the uterus. These are interesting things to know, how the uterus gets the blood supply, and why the bleeding is stopped after some time and it's not continuous. So you should know the answers to these questions. And innermost layer, which we've been talking about in the menstrual cycle, is the endometrium, and the different layers of the endometrium is like stratum basalis, and stratum functionalis. So stratum functionalis and stratum basalis. All right. So, and function, you already know, it's the site of implantation and subsequent embryonic development and fetal development. Okay. So this is in general about the structure of the uterus. And let us just now refer to the diagram where things will become even more clear to you. So just the first structure you see. So here, this is the ovary. These are the oviducts. The parts I've already told you, and this inverted pear-shaped portion is the uterus. So this is the uterine fundus, the dome-shaped structure. The dome-shaped structure is the fundus. Then it tapers a little bit. So this tapered part is the body or the corpus. So this part is the body, and the neck part is the cervix, and the cervix encircles the cervical canal. So this is the cervical canal, and there are two openings. There is one opening through which, this is internal OS. It communicates, the cervix communicates through the internal OS to the uterus, and through the cervical canal, through the external OS communicates to the vagina. All right. So the different parts you should know, and I'm going to write it here. So you have the fundus, you have the body, you have the cervix, and the cervical canal. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the structure of, a detailed structure get an idea of where exactly the different structures are. So you can see one side of the uterus is intact, while the other side they've taken a section. So can you just make out? So see, this is the dome-shaped part, which is fundus, quite clear to you, and this is the body of the uterus. Just make out what we have done. There are different ligaments by which the ovary is connected to the uterus and to the pelvic cavity. There is this body of the uterus. This is the body of the uterus. So this narrow, I mean, as if this is the uterus, then the narrow part is the body, and then what is there in this narrow, I mean, further down, if you go after the body towards the vagina, you have got this cervix. This is the cervix. This is the cervix. So also from this side, you can see dome-shaped part is the fundus. This is the body, and this is the cervix. And here is the cervical canal. Just look at the cervical canal. This is the cervical canal. And can you please locate? I'll use a different color. The two openings. So we have the internal OS. So through this, the cervical canal opens into the uterus through the internal OS, and this is the external OS. So the cervical canal opens into the vagina. So further down you have the vagina, all right. So cervix is the endmost part of the uterus. So external OS is the opening through which the cervical canal opens into the vagina. All right. So these things are clear to you. So these were the labelings I wanted to show you. Now coming over here, just a second. Orifice or opening. Okay. So let us now complete the labelings. Just concentrate on the labelings. So whatever I have told you now in this diagram, is there anything that you cannot figure out? Now see, they have also shown you the wall of a magnified view of the wall of the uterus. So as I told you, the innermost is endometrium. So see where the endometrium is. The innermost is endometrium. The middle thickest is the myometrium, and the inner is endometrium, the middle one is myometrium, and the outermost is the perimetrium. So three layers. This is inner, this is middle, and this is outer. So perimetrium is outer, this is middle, this is inner. And then you have the uterine cavity where the fetus will be. This side, let us just come. This is uterine tube, then these are ovaries. Then you have this ovarian ligament is the ligament by which the ovaries are attached to the wall of the uterus. So this is one ligament, and there is this broad ligament. And then, yes, you also have the vagina. So I told you, I mean, after the cervix, you have the vagina, which is the birth canal, So cervical canal is different and birth canal is different. And you can see there are various folds on the wall of the vagina, and these are called rugae. We have also done rugae somewhere else also. Stomach mucosa also had rugae. Okay. So these are the structures present inside the uterus. Is this clear to you? So we have done now. I have just told you the different parts of the uterus. Let us do a little bit about the histology of the uterus. You know that the uterus has got the wall of the uterus has three layers. As it is labeled over here, you have the perimetrium, you have the myometrium, and you have the endometrium. Now perimetrium is thick and it is made up of smooth muscles, and these smooth muscles, they do not contract. I mean, see, if the level of progesterone is high, they will not contract, but during menstruation, when the endometrium lining breaks and the level of progesterone is less, they will show contraction. There is another time when they show contraction upon the action of oxytocin. You know, oxytocin is a hormone released by the posterior pituitary, posterior lobe of the pituitary. So progesterone and oxytocin, progesterone and oxytocin are the two hormones that act upon the myometrium. Progesterone inhibits the contractions and tries to maintain pregnancy, whereas oxytocin, when it is released, this is also called, popularly called, the birth hormone or the milk letdown factor. So what it does, it stimulates contractions of the myometrium and helps in childbirth. Okay, and again you have endometrium. Again you have endometrium, and endometrium, you know, is made up of two layers. It is made up of the stratum basalis, which is the permanent layer, and stratum basalis secretes stratum functionalis, and this is the layer that is lost during menstruation or breaks during menstruation. Okay, you should also know the blood supply to the uterus. See, uterus, who is supplying blood to the uterus or to the female reproductive system? That is also very, very important. There should be some artery. Obviously there is aorta, and the aorta branches, and there are different parts, different branchings of the aorta. So I told you that blood supply to the uterus is very important. Blood supply to the uterus is very important, and you should know how blood is supplied and how after 3 days even after the arteries break, the menstrual flow stops and all that. So this is really important, and let us just. So this is the blood supply to the art to the. This is the blood supply to the uterus. So let us see. See, this is the aorta. This is the aorta, and the aorta branches into the uh, external. There's this common iliac artery, and it branches into the internal iliac and external iliac artery. The internal iliac artery again branches into two arteries. Out of that, one is the uterine artery, and the other is the vaginal artery. So we are concentrated about the uterine artery. So this uterine artery, look at this uterine artery. This uterine artery branches as it enters the uterus. This uterine artery, as it enters the uterus, it branches into the arcuate artery. Arcuate artery. So you should know the name of the common iliac artery, internal iliac artery, then the uterine artery. As it comes to the uterus, it branches. One branch goes and forms the arcuate artery, and this is like shaped like a bow. That's why it's called arcuate. So this arcuate artery is arranged in a circular fashion around the myometrium. You can see this entire collection. So this is arranged in a circular fashion in the myometrium, and this further branches to form the radial artery. You can see it further branches to form it penetrates deeper into the myometrium and forms the radial arteries. It forms the radial arteries. Okay. And just before, now see, all these arteries are there inside the myometrium. So just before the radial arteries enter the endometrium. So this is like deep inside is the endometrium, no? So deep inside is endometrium. So as they begin to, just before they begin to enter the endometrium, they divide into two kinds of arteries. One is into arterioles, sorry. One is the straight arteriole over here. They branch into two. One is the straight arteriole, which does not show coiling, and the other is spiral arterioles. And spiral arterioles are very, very important. We have developed this in the course of evolution. I told you, everything in human physiology you should relate to evolution. So these spiral arterioles, these spiral arterioles, you can see a closer view over here. So these spiral arterioles, they extend into the stratum functionalis, and during the menstrual flow, when the arteries contract, so after breaking they take this coil shape, so they don't, the bleeding stops after some time. Otherwise, if they were like normal arteries and straight and some other structure, the bleeding would have continued. So see over here, this diagram is again a closer view. So you have this artery, ovarian artery, um, you have this uterine artery, sorry, you have the uterine artery, this is the ovarian artery, this is the uterine artery. So the uterine artery enters, and as it enters, so this is the myometrium. In the myometrium, it branches to form arcuate artery and radial artery. So it enters and forms the arcuate artery and the radial artery. So arcuate and radial are the first branchings into the myometrium. So first is the arcuate, and the second is the radial artery. And the radial artery, just before entering the endometrium, it divides into the spiral artery. The spiral artery is actually in the stratum functionalis. So when blood loss takes place, menstruation takes place, they they do not break, they just coil after that, and then stop the blood flow, stop the menstrual flow. Okay, so this is in short how blood flow takes place into the uterus. So you should know the names of all the arteries. So we have the aorta, that then brings blood to the uterus. Aorta, there's this common iliac artery, then you have the internal uh, iliac artery. So one branch of this enters the uterus, so that is the uterine artery. This is the uterine artery, and the uterine artery further branches to form the arcuate artery of the bow-shaped artery. So this is the arcuate artery. So arcuate artery, further it forms the radial artery, and just before it enters the endometrium, it forms the spiral artery. So you understood why the blood flow is not continuous and it stops after some time, because even when the arteries are ruptured, broken, they take that spiral form. Okay, so I hope the blood supply to the uterus and the names of the arteries are clear to you. Yes, we are talking about this structure. So we have done about the oviduct. So amongst the secondary sex organs, we have done the oviduct, about the uterus, and now we will do about the vagina. So vagina is around 10 centimeters. It is a tubular structure. It is a kind of a fibromuscular canal. So it's around 10 centimeters in length, and it's fibromuscular canal like structure. It's a passage actually. It's called birth canal also. So it's a fibromuscular canal. ट्यूब के जैसा, canal means जिसके through कुछ pass कर सकता है. It has multiple roles again. Vagina is the structure that receives the penis during copulation, and sperms are deposited in the vagina, and from here the sperms have to cross such a long way. यहाँ से लेके यहाँ तक का सफर around 30 centimeter का सफर है that the sperm has to carry. So how is that possible, or कैसे होता है when we do the process of fertilization? So it's 10 centimeter in length approximately. It's a fibromuscular canal, tubular structure, receives the penis during copulation, and is the site where the sperms are deposited. Now, do you know this, that from the menarche to the menopause, there are certain bacteria. There are certain bacteria in the vagina. And what is the name of the bacteria? So you have to tell me that. Do you know what is the name of the bacteria? And the vaginal wall has folds called rugae. And what do the rugae do? They stimulate the rugae. You're asking me, no? So they stimulate glans penis. I'll tell you the different parts of the penis. After we have completed all the female secondary sexual organs, we will go to the male secondary sexual organs and we will compare them. So it stimulates gland penis during intercourse. This is the function of the rugae and they help in inducing ejaculation. Ejaculation का मतलब होता है when the sperms are released into the vagina. So vagina tube जैसा है, it has got these folds called rugae. And अभी मैंने आपसे क्या पूछा? Which bacteria is present in the vagina from the menarche to the menopause, and what is the use of that bacteria? उस bacteria का use क्या है? That is Lactobacillus acidophilus. That is Lactobacillus acidophilus. What does Lactobacillus acidophilus do? Which bacteria is present? I told you the bacteria's name is Lactobacillus acidophilus. This bacteria is present in the vagina. ये bacteria क्या करता है? There is glycogen also over here. So it causes fermentation and converts glycogen into lactic acid and thereby decreases the pH. pH कम रहेगा, acid produce होगा तो क्या होगा? What is going to happen? This prevents all the vaginal infections. Now this is the passage all the time. I mean, if open, so bacteria can easily gain entry and there could be chances of infection. So ये जो acid produce होता है ना, it kills all the bacteria which enter the vagina. So this has got a very important role, and the pH, that's why the pH in the vagina is acidic. So this reduces the occurrence of this Lactobacillus acidophilus. It reduces the infections over here. Understood? It reduces the chances of infections in the vagina. एक चीज है that is like very unique over here. You also have the walls also have dendritic cells which they have not mentioned. इसके wall में special cells भी होते हैं called dendritic cells. Dendritic cells are actually antigen presenting cell. आपको antigen presenting cell के बारे में पता है? If you have studied immunology, आपको पता चलेगा there are certain cells like macrophages, like dendritic cells. They are antigen presenting cells. मतलब whenever a foreign body enters your body, they are going to break that foreign body into pieces and display it on their membrane so that they are easily recognized by your immune cells. तो ये dendritic cells है ना, ये present है in the wall of the vagina, और इसके वजह से, इस dendritic cells की वजह से they participate in the transmission of viruses. You should ask me why. ऐसा क्यों होता है? देखो एड्स का जो वायरस होता है ना, एड्स का वायरस, if you've heard, AIDS virus is a sexually transmitted disease. So during sexual intercourse, when the semen enters the vagina, so if a male is infected, so that particular virus, the HIV, is present in the semen of the male, and it enters since the semen enters the vagina, so it is over there. Now that is regarded as something foreign by the dendritic cells, and these dendritic cells just present it on the surface, and this is how this virus gains entry into the blood of the female. So AIDS is easily transmitted from a infected male to a female. You understanding? Because semen से वो blood में कैसे आया? It is because of the dendritic cells. Understood? वहाँ पे अगर if your immune system fails, then that virus is going to take over. And you know how dangerous viruses are. They can change their forms and everything. Species अलग है. अलग-अलग species है. Curd बनाने के लिए भी lactobacillus है. There are different species of lactobacillus. There is lactobacillus bulgaricus, lactobacillus acidophilus. Lactobacillus acidophilus is a bacteria which is present in the in the vagina, it is present in the vagina that converts glycogen into lactic acid, decreases pH, and because of this acidic environment, it reduces the chances of infection in the vagina. So it's like a way of protection. Understood? See, dendritic cells were present because you can say that they play a role in immunity, but by this, unfortunately, dendritic cell के होने से the virus from the semen enters the blood of the female. You understand? Yes. Blood तक कैसे पहुंच जाता है? It is because of the dendritic cell that presented on its surface, and वहां से it can easily gain entry into your blood. ठीक है, यहाँ तक you've understood about vagina. It is also called the birth canal. जो आपको याद रखना है, it's the acidic pH of the vagina, the name of the bacteria that is present in the vagina. Now you should also know कि ये जो vagina है ना, it is covered by a layer called the hymen. आपने सुना है? A thin fold of vascularized mucous membrane. A thin fold of vascularized mucous membrane is present. Called hymen is present, okay, over the vagina. They form a border around the vaginal opening. So vagina ka jo opening hai na, over there is a structure called hymen. Hymen, what is the role of hymen? Hymen is perforated, मतलब वो blood और ये सब की जो passage है उसको allow करता है, and it ruptures during sexual intercourse. However, hymen ऐसा wrong saying है, it's a myth कि hymen only ruptures during sexual intercourse. Hymen can also rupture because of vaginal infections or because of activities like if the female is very active in sports like cycling, horse riding, swimming, she's doing a lot of athletics, even day to day, maybe it could rupture. So the opening of the vagina is guarded by a perforated membrane like structure called the hymen. So and rupturing of the hymen is not the sign of that the about virginity. It has nothing to do with that, so that's a myth. So the vaginal opening has got this porous membranous structure called the hymen. Now going further to the outside you have a structure called vulva. You've got a structure called vulva. What is vulva? Vulva is actually the external genitalia. यहाँ तक आपको समझ में आ गया? So once again I am repeating. We did about the oviduct, we did about the different parts of the uterus, the walls of the uterus, the linings. Then we did about the vagina. Okay. Yes, Acidophilus is a species. Lactobacillus is the name of the genus, and Acidophilus is the name of the species. This is the female external genitalia's diagram. This is the female external genitalia's diagram, and you have the vulva, which is called the. So vulva is the putendum, is the other name. That is the external genitalia, and there are various components of the vulva. There is this mons pubis. I'm going to tell you everything. So first list the parts. There is mons pubis. There is labia majora. There is labia minora. You have the vestibule. Then you have inside the vestibule you have various openings that I will tell you, and some glands. Then you have the clitoris. So these are the important structures that are present, that are components of the vulva. So coming to the mons pubis is this elevation, this elevated structure, which is made up of adipose tissue and is covered by skin, and it has this pubic hair. So all over this is the mons pubis, you can see. All right, and then you can see two folds of skin. Just locate labia majora. Okay, so you can see the bigger folds, the bigger two folds, longitudinal folds on the outer side, externally, these light structures that they have focused on. So these are two external folds. So these are two folds located externally in the mons pubis, or just the structure which comes after this. So this is labia majora. So they are present externally, and there are two longitudinal folds present externally. Then there is this labia minora, which are present internally. They are also folds of the skin which are present internally. So mons pubis, labia majora to the outside, labia minora inside, labia majora outside, labia minora inside. All right, and I will tell you these structures are homologous to what. So you should also write, because you do get these questions. You do get these questions. They ask you about their homology, like this is homologous to what, but I'm going to tell you at the end, don't worry. So from the mons pubis, there are two longitudinal folds of skin present externally, which are labia majora. Two longitudinal folds of the skin present internally, which is labia minora. All right. Then the space enclosed by the labia minora is the vestibule. Please locate the vestibule. ये जो space है ना enclosed, मतलब labia minora के अंदर जो structure है, जो space है, that is vestibule. That is vestibule. And what does the vestibule have? What does the vestibule have? The vestibule has two openings. It has the urethral opening and the vaginal opening. And this vaginal opening, I was telling you, it is guarded by hymen, but in this case, the hymen is torn. See? Okay? Understood? And yes, one more thing, that inside the vestibule, you have these two openings, the urethral opening and the vaginal entrance. This vaginal opening is there, which is guarded by hymen. You also have certain glands. You can see this greater vestibular gland, and there is one more. There is greater vestibular gland, and there is lesser vestibular gland also. So greater vestibular gland, and one more is lesser vestibular gland. So just look at the location of the greater vestibular gland. So here is the greater vestibular gland. All right. And you also have the lesser vestibular gland. So these are the different glands. These are the different glands present in the vestibule. And you have the clitoris, which is homologous to the male penis. So it is homologous to the glans penis. Okay, so here is the clitoris. So this is the external genitalia in a female having mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, vestibule, clitoris, and vestibule has glands and openings. So till here, have you understood